Good evening, everybody. It's right on 6 o'clock. My name is Malcolm Gorge. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission, and I'm going to call this meeting to order for the meeting of April the 3rd, 2022. We're good. Yeah. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate seeing a full audience. It's very encouraging. And I think it is on. I just have to shout into it. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Yeah, got it. Okay. And this same message to anybody else that wishes to speak. Please use the microphone. You really got to practically swallow the thing to make yourself heard. But we do have people listening in and watching on YouTube, anxious to follow these proceedings. So from my colleagues on the Planning Commission or anybody that wishes to speak, please ensure you speak closely and clearly into the microphone. And if anyone can't hear, just put your hand up in the air and we'll try and address that. So with no further ado, we'll call the meeting to order. And can we confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, sir.
Thanking you. Would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Malcolm Gorge.
Here.
Ed Kessler.
Here.
Erica Page.
Here.
Marcus Taylor. Here. Ken Coleman. Jamal Mosley.
Here.
Bill Tomes.
Here.
Thank you. And can you confirm the notification and posting of the agenda in accordance with state law?
Yes, sir, it was.
Appreciate that. So next item, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, we have one housekeeping item, and that is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which all of my fellow commissioners have had sight of in their packet. Has anybody got any comments, additions, changes? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved to be set into the record. Thank you. So, moving right along, the primary action item tonight is a zoning map amendment to change D1 to LI2 for the map number, hopefully you can see, R12500-03-01. If anybody wishes to speak on this topic, please make sure your name is on the list on the table there. It will be open for another minute or two, and then the list will be closed and will be presented to me to call on folks to come up and speak in due course. So if you wish to speak, please make sure your name is on that list. Very good. So, Mr. Williamson, could you set this up for us as you usually do?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant tonight is the property owner of Saddlebrook Properties, but they have designated Jeff Rubel of the Richland County Economic Development Office as their agent. And Mr. Rubel is requesting to rezone the property located south of the industrial park and northwest of Ashley Oak subdivision at the dead end of Locklear Road from Development District D1 to Light Industrial 2 District LI2 Total land area is approximately 290.8 acres in size. The surrounding zoning districts: to the north is LI2, to the south is D1 in the Ashley Oak subdivision, to the east is LI2, and to the west is R40 Low Density Residential District. Property is vacant. All of the current industrial park land to the north and east designated for industrial use has the LI2 zoning classification. This amendment would extend the LI2 zoning further south, and according to the Town of Blythewood 2020-2030 Comprehensive Plan, future land use map, the subject property is classified as low-intensity residential. However, the subject property is directly adjacent to the business, industrial, commercial classification to the north. Proposed rezoning furthers Comprehensive Plan Goal Number 2 to support a diverse and resilient local and regional economy. And strategy to meet this goal is to coordinate with Richland County to develop, adopt, and implement plans for the industrial park. And Scout Motors' recent announcement to develop the industrial park adds significant development pressure to this area, which didn't exist when the comprehensive plan was updated in 2022. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of the map amendment in order to facilitate the planning and development of the industrial park.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Let me know what I think we should do now. I'd like Jeff Rubel from Richland County to come and make his presentation so that you all have the same information available in front of you. Then I'll call upon those people that have signed in to make any comments that they wish to make, and then the commission will discuss those outcomes, call on other people to add to their testimony, and hopefully we'll get to a point where we can move a motion. So, Mr. Rubel, could you step forward? Hopefully your slides are now available.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thanks for having us up here. I feel like I live here these days. Hopefully this will work with me. I did want to just kind of provide a little background just for the group, for the audience. Some of you know some of this, others know bits and pieces. Some of you have lived through rezoning the industrial park and others haven't. So I just wanted to provide a little context. I guess first and foremost, let me make a couple introductions. You know, everything we've tried to do has been tried to be as transparent as possible, keep everybody up to date, work with the town. To that end, I asked people that know a lot more than I do to come with me tonight, and they're going to be prepared to answer questions as well. I have with us Corey Wise. He's with Thomas & Hutton Engineering. Corey's been the point guy on getting the site engineered. He's worked night and day for the last 2 or 3 months on this. I mean, just countless hours. Brian Gwynn is with Norfolk Southern. Some of the questions certainly will be about rail, and we asked Brian to be prepared to answer some questions. And last but not least, Tiffany Harrison, wave your hand. She's the liaison now for serving for the county with the company. A lot of you remember her from before. So with that, without further ado, let me walk through just a few slides. How did we get here? So most of you are familiar with these numbers, but I thought I'd remind everybody again. The average household in Richland County pays about $500 a year in property taxes. The cost to provide services to the average household in Richland County is more than $3,000. Most of that is incurred in the cost of educating children. So you look at those two numbers, they just don't add up. How do we balance the budget? Well, Kirk, you can keep moving. We've got a couple choices. We can raise taxes, or we can try to increase our tax base. If you look at tax comparisons, comparatively, South Carolina has the highest property tax rates in the country, just about. And this area of Blythewood has the highest in South Carolina. So for a lot of reasons, a lot of folks think you shouldn't raise property tax rates here in this area. So where does that lead us? You've got a ton of new growth. That's what's driving property taxes. It's not like anybody did anything wrong. But if you look on that map, you see new neighborhoods and new schools, and with that are new costs. So how do you attack that? Well, in November, well, actually, this started a lot earlier. In 2001, the county started looking at this site generally. We acquired 1,349 acres in November, but the full site was about 2,000 acres that came to our attention. We had pitched it as a semiconductor site, and the state of South Carolina had optioned the entire 2,000 acres back in 2001. So it wasn't by accident that we discovered it again. We went to the landowners. They were courting. They weren't courting. They were being courted by potential residential developers. They told us they wanted to make an impact for the community. They agreed to sell to us. We put the property under contract, and we closed again in November of 2019. We had originally thought that the industrial park would develop on a one-off basis. So a number of smaller buildings, and I say small, some of those buildings are 1 million square feet, but we figured it would take us, actually we didn't figure, we asked somebody to analyze it for us, and they came back and told us it would take us 20 years to sell this site. So we figured 20-year sellout. Then about 2 years ago, the legislature, or the Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and because of that, we started seeing some huge users come in. If you look at the site, it's divided by a power line. The north of the power line is about 1,000 acres contiguous. All of a sudden, single user came into the vocabulary. All these companies that wanted to build one major site started talking to us. I have a slide deck that I've presented to other groups, but we probably had 10 projects like this, all looking at this site. This is layout for one of them. This would have been a major battery manufacturer, 3,000 employees, $3 billion. If you can see, they would have taken the entire site right up to Saddlebrook Properties. That didn't come to fruition, and we're glad it didn't. The reason we're glad it didn't was because right about 1 month ago, we announced Scout Motors. This is a transformational project. I don't know if I'm overstating it, but probably the largest announcement we've ever had in Columbia. Some people said the biggest day in the history. The project numbers are pretty impressive. Some have been published, but those are the actual numbers, what they told us they would do. So close to $2.4 billion, 4,800 jobs. It'll have a positive impact across the board for the town of Blythewood. I should mention the town of Blythewood, the town council is fully supportive of this. Richland County Council voted unanimously for the project. The state of South Carolina was overwhelmingly supportive. They've provided the largest incentive package in state history. It's what we all wanted. It's beyond anything we dreamed about. So I think up to this date, I think a lot of what we discussed are road improvements. You can see that we are planning the 4-lane community road all the way from Blythewood Road down to 21. We plan on extending the 4-lane of Blythewood Road all the way up to Muller Road. We plan on building a new interchange and an entrance road from Farah over to a new interchange entering the site. That'll be the front door for the plant. I think it's been said a couple other times, but it probably bears repeating. If we had developed the park the way we originally intended to, one building at a time, we would have never had a new interchange. We would have probably never had these kind of road improvements. So to be able to land one big deal and get all this knocked out up front is a huge boost to the community. It not only doesn't add to the community's traffic woes, it probably helps solve them. And last, I think this is a slide we will want to talk about further. But let me now turn it over to a couple of my guys. Corey, do you want to talk a little bit about the site, and then Brian can talk a little bit about the rail?
So can you go back to the slide that had the whole overall? Yeah, this one. So I'll just give you some background on kind of how we got to where we're at with the location of the rail itself and these road improvements. So as it was stated, the rail main line is over to the east of the site, east of I-77, parallel to Highway 21. So no matter the way you cut it, to get rail to the site, you're going to have to cross east side of the interstate, over the interstate, and then onto our property, or county property rather. We originally looked at having this rail yard in the north. You know, that would put it away from the residents, at least in the south. It'd get us closer to the town center, which isn't necessarily ideal. But that would not work just due to the elevation change between the east side of the interstate and the west side of the interstate that we're proposing. So that made us push the rail yard to the south there. You really had to either have it in the north or the south, just the way these sites are set up. You can't put it dead center of the facility. So the other piece of that is the interchange. So we've got exit 24 and exit 27, 3 miles apart. There's spacing requirements from DOT where you can only put an interchange so close to another. So the location of that interchange, it really can't shift 100 feet one way or the other. So it worked out perfect that we were able to get another interchange in there, but we're really locked in on that location. So the other piece of that is where to bring the rail in. Again, like I said, it was either north or south. The north wouldn't work out due to elevation. So that brought us to the south. We had to have certain separation from the new interchange there that's proposed. So we're, you know, just barely outside of that separation requirement to the south. And then, you know, the rail yard itself, that landed as close to the facility as we can get it. And again, there's the slide there that's at the end that kind of zooms in and shows some of that spatial distancing there. Is there a way to zoom in on that so you can see those dimensions? And if you need to, I've got a separate exhibit on your desktop that you can open up. You may be able to do it. I can go ahead and speak to part of it while he's pulling that up. So the first rail line there, the first red line closest to the south that you can see, it's approximately 650 feet horizontally from the northern boundary. There you go. That's perfect. So you got about 640 feet there of separation between the most northern boundary of the neighborhood there to the south. So that's, you know, as the crow flies on the ground, but you've also got approximately on average probably 70 to 80 feet of elevation difference between that rail yard. So the rail yard is going to be up on a hill and the neighborhood itself there to the south. So on top of that horizontal separation, you've got, you know, if you picture a triangle, you've got the hypotenuse of the triangle there. That gives you even more spatial distance from that rail yard. And then there's also, it's hard to see there. Again, this scale is so large, even zoomed in. But there's if you look at that, the kind of brown shading, the proposed 225 utility easement, there's a 50-foot undisturbed buffer. So that forested buffer will remain undisturbed. You'll have 225 feet for that easement that'll have multiple utilities in it. And then as you go up the hill there, we're also working into our design that 25-foot berm. So that's not vertical, that's horizontal. The berm's about 25 foot wide on average, probably 5 foot high. But also what we're proposing to do on that is plant, you know, the evergreen trees that are typically used to buffer properties. They get about 40 foot high, but they grow so tight together, you know, you might as well have a green wall there. So that's what kind of we're looking at. But I'll kind of turn it over to Brian Gwynn with Norfolk Southern. He can kind of talk about the details of that rail yard, how we got to where we're at, how it's set up, how they're going to operate.
Thanks, Corey. As Corey mentioned, the support yard, the rail use for the plant was a requirement of the company. They need to have the rail there to load out all the vehicles that are going to be made at the plant to distribute across the United States. And then they also need the rail there to bring in all inbound auto parts such as batteries and things of that sort that are going to be coming into the plant. So when they put out a solicitation for sites, it was a requirement that the site have rail and that have a rail yard on the property. So when the county approached us about the site, we worked with them to develop this option to bring rail into the site. You'll notice there on the bottom there's the first few sets of tracks are considered what we call inbound and outbound set-off tracks. So the locomotive that brings cars into the site will come on those tracks itself, and they will then pull north and then put those cars into the support yard there that you see. The prep tracks are what an automotive facility loads vehicles into what's called a multi-level. That multi-level is a double-decked rail car where vehicles are driven into the rail car and then loaded out. You may have seen in downtown Columbia, BMW ships those vehicles down to the Port of Charleston, and they come through downtown Columbia, so you may have seen those here in town. Those prep tracks are then used to set what we call the chocks that are inside the vehicles, and so those tracks are needed to set those cars aside. The support yard itself will hold empty multi-levels waiting to be departed out from the facility. This plant is, in the first phase, is scheduled to make approximately 200 to 230,000 vehicles a year. We think we can put about 10 vehicles in a rail car, depending upon the type of vehicle they're making. Maybe some of the larger ones, maybe about 8. They won't move them all by rail. Some of them will move by truck, obviously, based on a distance around the plant. Probably maybe 50 to 60% will go by rail. The remaining will go out by truck. But then they will also have inbound auto parts, so those will come in rail cars into the support yard and then be spotted into the plant there for unloading at the plant. So off the page here, there are unloading facilities inside the plant. You can kind of see a green track there that will go in. So they have various tracks going into the plant to bring various auto parts. So they want the batteries, for instance, brought to a certain part of the plant. They want the axles brought to a certain part of the plant, and steel and so forth. So those tracks will be used for that purpose. The whole facility is being designed as a industry support yard, meaning that we will not be operating at any high speed. It will be less than 10 miles an hour. And the curves in this facility, because of the lengths of the rail cars and also because we can design it ahead of time, are very gentle curves. What that means from a noise perspective is that when trains are operating at a low rate of speed, for instance, say 10 miles an hour, and a very gentle curve, the sound that is normally associated with steel wheel to steel rail squeal, as you might want to call it, is typically much lower than it is when you see a higher speed train, say operating at 40 to 50 miles an hour around a 12 or 13 or 14 degree curve. And so we think that it is also being designed with 0 grade crossings inside the facility. That matters because when you have at grade crossings, the FRA requires the railroad to sound the horn. We will not have to sound the horn inside this facility. It is being designed without those grade crossings in place, so that will not be necessary. And
Excuse me, sir. Would you please refrain from interrupting? Your time to speak will be, shortly, just to keep it on a professional level.
so I'll answer his question. Essentially, no, we do not plan to sound the horn. If there was an emergency, they would have to sound the horn. If there's somebody that ran out on the track, if there was an absolute emergency, but that would be the case in any rail operation that we have anywhere in the country, quite frankly. So that's all I had to present on the rail, but I'll certainly answer any questions you have.
We appreciate that. We have a long list of people that want to ask questions.
I have a question. The rail operation, is that
24 hours a day, or is it limited to certain times?
I would say right now, we're going to try to match the schedule of the plant. The plant hasn't really determined with us what schedule they're going to operate on, so typically we try to match that schedule. In some places, we would certainly strive to make it a daylight operation, but if they plan to bring in parts and have a 3-shift operation, it's possible we will have to have people out there during the night.
Okay.
But I think it's too early to really to know that at this point.
Thank you again. Just to close for our presentation, this is a seems a little forward in making this request, but this project can't happen without rezoning this property. The schedule is extremely tight. So we're trying to move dirt almost immediately. This is one of the first sections we've got to develop. So we can't delay. I would ask the commission tonight, approve, deny, but do not defer. And B, I would greatly appreciate you approving. I think it would send, there could possibly be front page stories if the message is you just got a generational deal and you're saying, no, we don't want it. So that's my request. Thank you again for your consideration. And certainly we're available to answer any questions.
I'm sure we'll have to call you back up again, Jeff, but thank you for that. So I have the list here. Let me just preface that by saying it's usual to ask people to keep their comments to within 3 to 4 minutes or so. And if the previous speaker has said all the things that you want to say, you can just echo that rather than repeat them in the interest of moving this along. But we want to hear from everyone that has something to say. First person on the list is Gordon Fuller. Would you come up to the podium and give your name and address, Mr. Fuller?
As Chairman Gord said, my name is Gordon Fuller. I live at 211 Maple Ridge Road in Ashley Oaks 1. It's actually covered by the legend on the far left-hand side of your screen. And I'm approximately 500 feet from the lake that's the pond that's there.
Can I interrupt you again? This is my problem as well. Could you make sure you're really speaking into the microphone?
Okay, how's that?
Just make sure our people who are tuning in can hear you.
Is that better?
Yep.
Good? Okay. So I want to address a environmental issue I think is yet to be stated. I've yet to see the site plan. I don't know how the facility is going to be laid out. But as we know, these are electric vehicles. They run on lithium-ion or Li-ion batteries. Li-ion batteries are designated by the DOT as a hazardous material and are under regulation because they pose an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce. The lithium batteries and cells have both a chemical and electrical hazard. And because of their components, they can overheat and ignite. Li-ion battery fires can be difficult to extinguish due to thermal runaway chain reactions and so on. That's science. However, the most dangerous threat for these batteries, EPA and NASA studies determine fires involving Li-ion batteries generate appreciable amounts of toxic substances, mostly hydrogen fluoride gas. HF poses severe gas safety risk in confined spaces, as well as smoke generated by a fire. Typical HF concentrations can be as high as 20 to 200 parts per million. That's like 20 red tennis balls in the midst of 1 million tennis balls, which exceeds the government safety limits of 3 parts per million over time and a short-term exposure limit of 6 parts per million. Even a 300 or 600-foot buffer zone won't minimize this type of environmental situation. I'd like to cite 2 examples of this. In 2021, the Morris lithium battery storage facility in Morris, Illinois, consumed 184,000 pounds of lithium-ion batteries. Due to the presence of hazardous substances within the building located where the fire was, the local emergency management agency directed a 1/2 mile evacuation of neighborhoods in every direction. Due to the possible release of the hazardous gases and particulates as a result of the fire, the EPA directed air monitoring be conducted in the area, and the monitoring detected the presence of the HF gas. The second example occurred in 2022. This was had impact on Volkswagen because the Felicity Ace, a cargo ship transporting 3,900 different vehicles, most a large which were Volkswagen Motor Group vehicles, caught fire in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They don't know exactly what the fire was caused by, but it was exacerbated by the fact that those vehicles had lithium-ion batteries on board. The fire was so severe that the ship was abandoned, and in his attempt to put it out, they had so much water to put on the fire, it sank. So we really don't know what the ultimate cause was, but all we do know is the responders that were on that boat, trying to put out the fire, noted that the batteries were part of the cause of the fire. And for this and other reasons, I think that until we see the site plan and know exactly where the batteries are going to be, I can only assume that Norfolk Southern is going to be responsible for bringing those batteries onto the site, among other means of transportation. And so if you look at where they're going to be, the potential exists for, if that catches on fire, not only our neighborhood, Westwood High School, and other areas are going to be affected by a downwind hazard that's caused by this. And until somebody can convince me otherwise, that's why I'm opposed to the zoning change.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.
Mr. Roger Hovis, would you like to step forward?
Good evening. Roger Hovis, 209 Maple Ridge Road, Ashley Oaks, Phase 1. I'm here tonight to talk about, or to ask maybe, it seems that this project kind of crept into our vision kind of stealthily, if you will. Many of my neighbors are here tonight to speak about this. We would like to have at least a little more time, maybe perhaps even come up with a joint citizen planning commission team, if you would, short term, to maybe review some of the things that we're talking about tonight, particularly the rezoning of the area behind Ashley Oaks, the D1 area that's in discussion tonight, because it sort of seems like council or commission is going against our comp plan, the new comp plan, which specifically has stated for years that Blythewood has always been a rural community. We have had various other industrial projects and ideas and layouts for industrial parks, but we have never had anything in the comp plan anywhere near this, and you guys know that. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, and yeah, it's a great opportunity for the town, for the county, and for the state. However, it's natural land that we're talking about. That land has been the way it is, wilderness, so to speak, with Beasley Creek watershed through there, that has been there for decades, undisturbed. I just kind of find it interesting the way this project has transpired, the rate of development, the way the plan is progressing right now. And we would just ask that, I know they don't want to hear that because they want to get it going and get it rolling, and I understand that too, but it's a natural area, and the research that my fellow citizens back here have done also indicates that this is one of the only in the country, for sure in the southeastern United States, that is being developed anywhere near residential areas. And we just ask you to take these items into consideration before you make any decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hovis. Next person on the list is Mr. Knopka. If you would like to step forward, please. Give your name and address.
My name is Rick Konopka, 201 Maple Ridge Road, Blythewood. I mean, as far as the plant goes, I don't have any real opposition to it other than
Can you pull the mic up, sir? Could you pull the mic up? Yeah.
Other than the noise of the rail yard itself. I mean, it's 600 feet behind our residences. Rail yard, the rails squeal. I haven't heard any actual measurements, no decibel levels. So I don't know how they're calculating what it is we're actually going to hear in our backyards. I mean, there's the switching of the cars when they bang together. I mean, everything on the internet says about 91 decibels. 600 feet away, it'll still be 50 decibels. The rail squeals, I guess the main one, 120 decibels. 600 feet away, still 80 decibels, which is about the sound of a blender. So it's pretty substantial. I hear that it's going to be traveling at a low speed. So I don't know, still a 90-foot car, still going to make a bit of a squeal without proper maintenance of the rail. It's going to be a busy yard, right? 200,000 cars, 550 a day. One every 3 minutes. So it'll be pretty busy. A lot of things coming in and out. A lot of equipment. I haven't heard any specifics, so they haven't done any real noise studies. Seems like it would be pretty simple to supply us with those numbers. I mean, they have a lot of auto factories here in the United States. I mean, some of the things they could do, they could put up a sound wall. But I haven't seen that as an option. I know it's many millions of dollars. Not sure how they're going to run the yard, whether or not they'll have the locomotives idling at night next to the residential areas, whether or not there'll be any concern for the residents. I think I've read a little bit about car retarders. I don't know anything about it, but apparently that's a source of noise. Just looking on Google Earth, I mean, you look at the last few plants that have been built, Mercedes-Benz, Alabama, Volkswagen, Tennessee, Toyota, Kentucky, all these from residential areas. It's about a mile away. It's pretty easy to see. It's not 600 feet. Not to say that they couldn't find some way to prevent the noise, but certainly no one's come up with a plan yet. I mean, it's pretty easy to calculate how the noise is going to travel. It's the internet has some calculations, but that's my main concern. It's the noise. I don't really want to particularly have to move, sell my house to someone who's not bothered by noise. I don't see it as a benefit to have a rail yard or a train put in your backyards. So for me, I mean, I don't see this as a dream come true. I wake up each morning thinking, are they really putting a rail yard in my backyard, or am I just have a bad dream last night? But anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Konopka.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abrahamson, please. If you would like to step forward and give your name and address. Thank you for coming.
My name is Steve Abrahamson. I live on 5 Maple Ridge Court in the Ash Oak subdivision, same thing as Mr. Fuller and Mr. Konopka. And this whole thing, I hadn't been keeping in touch with any news, especially national news, because everything you hear on there is just bad. But after all of a sudden, this just kind of grew into a weed. Like, hey, we're putting this in your backyard. Richland County, I'm assuming, bought this property, and I didn't hear anything about having meetings about this being put back here where we can all have a chance to talk about it. But like I was listening to the gentleman from the rail company saying about the you don't have to have the horns. The toot when you're going back and forth, OSHA requires it. Federal, that's what I always had, because I worked in the industry, and you always had the horns to toot. So they move back and forth, or they have certain sirens. And that's one of my concerns, is that tooting all night long if they go 24/7. And also any intercoms that it echoes, like when people are calling each other. Venting, because what kind of chemicals will be there. I like to see what the material safety data sheets, what are they going to store there? What are they going to use to produce these cars? And what hazard is it going to be for us for inhalation or drinking? Because some people still have wells in that area, not in Ashley Oaks, we used to. But anyway, there's several things I could talk about tonight. But thing is, why wasn't a study done by the county's economic department, or has there been one, about the noise? Because I talked to 3 realtors, I will not tell the names, and they said, right now, yeah, it's hot. It's a hot area. Homes are going for more, they were on some, but they say anywhere from 7 to 15% and higher will be a D value in our property. And I worked hard to get that house and to pay for it, but everybody's going to benefit. The county benefits. The state's going to benefit. And of course, people, I want jobs for people, and they need to work, and that's great for Blythewood. But the thing is, what about the 80 to 100 home or residents that are going to lose money? Who's going to pay for our loss? I know it ain't started yet, but in 2025, when we get this thing rolling, I'm going to have the decibel meter, have my own study done, and then, if so, somebody's going to pay me. And even if they got to pay for my home, it's going to be double the price because of cost to move somewhere else, and for other issues too. And that's not fair to the people. And I heard tonight, so let's hurry up and rush this thing. The economics director just said, let's get this thing going. Well, what about us? Somebody's left holding the bag, and it's the residents in the Ashley Oak subdivision. I can't speak for everybody, but I would invite the governor, the CEO of Scout, to go stay at my house when this thing goes in full swing, and and let them know what it's like to live there. And I've worked in the industry, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know how they can control that. 600, if it's 1,000 feet, I don't care if it's a 60-foot berm, it can absorb so much sound, and the wall is only deflected. So the berm is your best effective tool, but why so close to our neighborhood? The interchange, move the interchange. I don't care if they got to redo all that. I'm just here to say that 2004, I was here, I got involved with the planning commission. There have been planning commissions come and gone, and that industrial park at the time, we were told some things by the former council wasn't right, and I was part of the Blythewood 60, and if we got to do it again, we got to do it again. That's
Thank you,
all I got
sir.
to say.
Appreciate it. Gina and Brent Norris, please. Are you here? Yep. Please speak very clearly into the
Yes, sir.
microphone and repeat that, please.
Yes, we're Gina and Brent Norris. We're in Ashley Oaks 3A. We're on 107 White Oak Ridge Lane.
Just wanted to comment, I don't have any prepared statements. I walked into this not knowing we were going to have a rail yard in the back of Ashley Oaks. But what I can tell you is we have a live workspace in Atlanta for part of my wife's business on the side of a Norfolk Southern rail yard. And it's not the horns, it's the crashing of the cars when they connect them together. Our lifestyle is going to be ruined by this. The noise is unacceptable. It's not only that, nobody's considering the construction of this thing. I sat down and tried to figure the concrete alone for a 14 million square foot place. This is going to be a 24/7 operation. Concrete trucks, every one of them have beepers. The grading, your whole lifestyle, your home is going to be ruined. I'm not going to have the quiet enjoyment of my home. I will fight this. This residential area, this is rural. This does not belong here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I'm from the engineering side of the business, and so I am very curious about a couple of things that have come up that I do not think the city or the town of Blythewood or Richland County has addressed. Number one, has there been a noise study done? If there has been one done, I think the residents that are immediately impacted deserve to receive a copy of that post haste. I also think that it is not appropriate at this time for this council to consider moving forward with this based on simply the lack of information that's been provided to the public. That's based on my experience working with other municipalities, along with the Department of Transportation with various states. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call up Trish Hovis, please? Are you speaking to the microphone?
Oh, yes, I'll speak into the microphone, no problem. My name is Trish Hovis, 209 Maple Ridge Road, Ashley Oaks, number 1. I don't have any prepared statements either, but my former speakers, I echo those sentiments. But I do have a question about this presentation in general and who prepared it, if I may ask that. Is this a Norfolk Southern preparation? Okay, great. So that slide specifically. I think that one of the first words that came out tonight was transparency, and I completely respect transparency, and I think that we would expect transparency. The PowerPoint slide, first of all, I think my neighborhood is covered up by the legend, so as far as trying to provide me with information with which I can properly prepare my questions, I don't even know where my house is on this. And then this is a slide that I believe that you probably are very familiar with, and I understand how that works. I prepare a lot of PowerPoint presentations, but for me, the contrast is not very good, which is a design issue. But when you talk about it, it would be helpful if you had a pointer so that we could see. I don't know really the difference between the brown area, which I think is a nature area, but the lines are very defined and rectangular, whereas the green area behind it, I guess, is a grassy area. And right, you can zoom in on that, and I appreciate that. But still, without a pointer and some idea of where my home is, I don't think that that compares with the goal of transparency that we were talked about tonight. So in PowerPoint presentations, I think that they're easily prepared, and they sometimes are biased because they're trying to make a point from a certain perspective. So just for example, when you tell us that there's only $300 some odd per household given to the education budget for a family, which the county doles out $3,200 for, there's also funds for South Carolina Department of Education that are somewhat supported by the federal government and other places beside property tax. So I do think that the comments that the previous folks have made, and I'll tell you just the word lithium, I can't even get on an airplane with a lithium battery and have it put in my luggage, a lithium battery that's bigger than the size of my fingernail for fear of catching the plane on fire. So I think back to my original statement, which is transparency. I think that we deserve maybe a presentation that's more clear, that is less biased, that provides more information so that we can have an intelligent exchange and one that is very helpful. And those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Joseph and Monica Lang Evans, please.
I'm Joseph Evans, my wife, Monica. Okay, we are here today, but we don't have any prepared.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you just let us know where you live, what your address is?
Okay, I live at 141 Summers Trace Drive.
Appreciate it.
Blythewood. Okay. We don't, like the previous lady here, we don't have a statement also, but she made some very valid comments here, about openness, transparency, and that would make a whole lot more clearness to me as well as everybody else that's sitting here. For example, you guys are showing us this diagram here where the plant's gonna be, but where is my house located on there? Where's the other houses, neighborhoods located on there? We don't see none of that. I mean, she makes a very valid point, and what I'm talking about is just piggybacking big time on what she just stated here. Holly Bluff, it don't make no sense to me. I don't think we need to move just like a flash in the night here. We're talking about families here, young families, kids growing up. We need to know where our kids going to grow up at. We're talking about dangers. We're talking about all sorts of issues that's going to pertain to us as taxpayers. It's kind of vague to me. I think there needs to be a little more time to reinvest here in more clarity. At this time, nothing's been prepared for me, but that's where I stand just now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Bobby Young, please.
Hello, Councilman. How are you?
We're good. So,
Neighbors, thank you for coming. I live at 1724 Fulmer Road, right around the corner from Locklear Road. I've lived here since 1999, and I put together a beautiful speech when I'm sure you guys would have all fallen asleep on it. But since 1999, there's been too many changes. And when I was the chair of the Planning Commission, and another fellow was also a chair at a different time on the Planning Commission, we always had workshops before a big thing like this went through. So I wanted to tell you right now that I'm kind of PO'd, because I feel like we've been left out of the loop, and that it's our homes that are at risk for the sake of Richland County making money, industry making money, and for anybody that doesn't realize it, that big brown section at the bottom is Ashley Oaks, what is it, 1? Number 1, and then on the left-hand side, that would be where the other Ashley Oaks are. So everybody's neighborhood, whether you guys realize it or not, are backed up all the way around this industrial area. It's wrong. This is wrong. I feel, coming from my perspective, that we should have a citizens impact group put together. People can go out and find out things, talk to all you people individually, and you can assure us that things are going to be good. I personally can't see that happening, because it really infuriates me that you have all that area and you decided to put the train yard right up against people's homes. Lithium batteries, wrong. So, I guess that's all I really have to say. I have other things I could say right now, but I'm really not in the frame of mind that I feel like I'm coming across properly. Please put together a citizens group so we can talk to these people before you make up your minds, and we can come together as friends, not as enemies. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. The last person on the list is Mr. Robert Finicum.
Robert Finicum, live at 6 Black Oak Court in the Ashley Oaks development. My opinion is just a little bit different. I actually am very excited about this personally, but I believe that everything that has been said is very legitimate. The biggest thing for me is, one, I don't think a 5-foot berm really cuts out noise like it needs to. I think a higher berm, in my opinion, something that can absolutely show that the noise is very nominal. Like if you can hear it inside of your house at all, I'd say that's definitely excessive, and I agree that the horns, I like the mitigation, but the jarring of the rail cars is probably at least as loud as the horns, and so that is a major concern. The other thing is I think that we lose all of our ability to negotiate and to be compensated for damages after everything is approved. So we need, in any contract, we need it written, and we need to know that if our properties, for example, do not keep up at the same rate as the rest of Blythewood financially in appreciation, if we lag behind the rest of Blythewood, what do we have to be compensated for that? And I think that that's something that, you know, if we can't stand to deal with the community because it's not what we envisioned when we purchased it, we should have a way to not be financially behind when we try to relocate ourselves. And that's all I have to say. But like I said, I'm actually probably a minority in that I am looking forward to this if it works out.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, there's one exception. Please give your name and address.
My name is Joel Siegfried. I live at 121 Locklear Road. Me and Gail both have wells. My well goes down pretty far, 80 or 90 yards.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any immediate questions, or would you like Mr. Rubel to step forward and address some of the issues that have been raised this evening? How do you want to play it?
Yeah, I know if somebody can speak to the sound issue that's been brought up several times, I think that will be helpful for the audience.
Yes, ma'am. I guess the one slide I took out, I probably shouldn't have, was just the speed of the project. So to recount, I think we were first contacted by the company in mid-December, and then it was just a series of very fast meetings. Every time they came in, they brought 20 German engineers, 25 German engineers, and every time they changed the layout. So I think I'm safe in saying the layout is still changing. That's the reason why a noise study hadn't been done. I'm not an expert on noise studies, I promise you. I found out more about noise studies in the past week than I've ever known in my life, but my understanding is it takes months.
And just a question, because, you know, you do have those green rails that are going inside the plant. Do you know if whether or not the cars are going to be loaded and unloaded, or parts are going to be unloaded inside the plant versus outside the plant? Do you know of any information on that by chance?
Yeah. You've exceeded my expertise. Let me turn to Brian.
To the podium, sir, please.
As Jeff mentioned, the plan is evolving, and so the current plan that they have, and of course, we live in a world where they can load something in a truck or they can load it in a rail car. So I haven't been given all of this business. They could easily put it in a truck and have it come in a 53-foot truck. So that doesn't mean that it will come in by rail, but right now they have planned rail tracks into the buildings for the batteries. So the box cars would go into the building and be unloaded inside of a building. The axles, the same way. The vehicles themselves are loaded outside. That is an outdoor operation. Further north off this page, there's a loading facility that they consider on their property. If you go back a slide or two, yeah. Can you zoom in on that? Up top? Yeah, to the picture. So there on the west side, you can kind of see where the rail goes. Actually, we're looking at it from the neighborhoods to the west, well, to the left. The rail goes around, we're up there where it says proposed rail spur, where there's a retention pond up there. That's actually where the loading and unloading will occur on that side of the plant. If that answers your question.
Yes. And,
Go ahead.
sorry. Well, and Malcolm, I really want to reiterate to everybody that's here that what is on the table is for us to consider rezoning what is currently D1 to
LI2.
Yeah, LI2. Thank you. And so all the information that you guys are providing is very welcomed. We're hearing a lot of this first-handed. So I think that's, there's a lot of information with regards to that. So, D1 to, the LI2 doesn't really pertain to where things lay on the land, So, I just really wanted to make sure that everybody understands what our job is as neighbors, as part of this town. I live in Cobblestone. I'm going to live across the street. I didn't ask for this either. So just like you guys, I'm trying to figure out how best to weather this in the most positive outcome possible. So our decision tonight will only go to council. You have that opportunity again from now till then to write letters. Go to Richland County, go to the state, go to the economic development folks and tell them your story. We are just part of D1 to, LI2. So I at least wanted to make sure that you guys understood that perspective from us as well. Sorry, Malcolm.
I appreciate that. A lot of what we've heard tonight is pertinent to the program moving forward, but as Ms. Page has said, our responsibility is primarily just to approve the zoning and the appropriateness of the zoning, and that's really all we are empowered to decide. So.
I'm not mistaken, council meets here in 3 weeks.
Last Monday of the month, yep. So, 24th?
So the 24th of April?
Yes, sir.
6 o'clock. It's on a Monday.
Thank you.
And the properties will be posted again for
Right.
the town council meetings.
I would say, as chair of the planning commission, that I personally think that the noise abatement is probably the most significant issue that's affecting the residents, and it would be more than helpful to have some objective reporting available for council to review. We are not in a position to insist on that. I'm just saying it here and now that that would be helpful in reaching the most balanced decision possible at this juncture. So we're here to consider a motion to accept or approve the request to change the zoning of the identified property from D1 to LI2. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Will you call a roll? Kirk, thank
Malcolm
you.
Gorge,
Aye.
Marcus Taylor, Erica Page,
Aye.
Ed Kesser.
Aye.
And Jamal and Bill are ayes as well, correct?
Aye. Aye.
The motion is carried. So our recommendation is to approve the zoning request to town council. We have to move on to the second action item, which is kind of related, but is also a general improvement to our ordinance regarding car parking spaces needed for industrial activities. Mr. Williamson, would you do the honors and just run through that real quickly, why we're doing it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a proposed text amendment, all in the zoning ordinance for all the different uses in each zoning district. There's a minimum parking space requirement that's generally based on square footage. And so we're looking at manufacturing in this zoning district. It was one space was required for every 300 square feet of indoor workspace in an industry.
Excuse me, I just feel like tonight is an example, y'all in bed with Richland County on this, and I'm offended by it. You hear from my lawyer, $20 million.
And so the parking was 1 per 300 square feet, and which is just an excessive amount of parking per industry standards. So as you know, we have a planning and zoning consultant now who's rewriting our zoning ordinance, and she recommended that the industry standard is 1 to 1,000 square feet, which is much reducing the number of parking spaces required. And of course, it doesn't limit the amount of spaces that any business can put there, but at least it's not because of the town's excessive requirement for that number of parking spaces. Therefore, this text amendment changes all the manufacturing uses in the LI2 zoning district from 1 per 300 square feet to 1 per 1,000 square feet. So that's the extent of the text amendment.
That seems a perfectly reasonable and logical amendment. Is there any questions or observations from the commissioners? Just for example, the current ordinance would require thousands of parking spaces for this particular development which is unreasonable and unnecessary. So that's really what's brought this to a head. So if there's no further questions, do I have a motion to approve the text amendment?
I make a motion the text amendment be approved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. We have a motion and a second from Mr. Mosley. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item is other business. I don't think we have any other business to address.
Restate the way that our approval works to council for understanding of those remaining.
I've been asked to just reiterate what I said earlier, that our position here is to follow the ordinance and the way in which the Planning Commission is authorized to operate, and we are only being asked to approve a zoning change. There are clearly major implications that need to be addressed, but we cannot provide the answers or the solutions to those issues. They have to come from further discussion, debate, and ultimately the town council. With that said, there is an opportunity for open citizens' comments. Oh, Mr. Williamson.
Another aspect is that the site plan does, for industrial development of this size, does require planning commission approval. So independent of the zoning, the site plan will be coming to the planning commission as well. Of course, I mean, it's bound by the ordinance, but planning commission will have another opportunity to look at the site plan in a much more developed way than shown for a rezoning.
And under a different set of criteria.
Correct.
Or a more complete range of criteria. So we're just at the first stage of several stages.
That's correct.
Thank you. So,
Malcolm.
One more comment?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So at that point, could we ask that some type of sound testing be done once that information is then presented to us, perhaps? If it's just a request, right? So that would be helpful, I think, to.
Certainly, we have spoken with them about that and are working on that.
Okay, cool.
And many of the other suggestions and comments made this evening are very sensible, logical, and to be recommended, such as gathering together and forming a representative group to consolidate the concerns. Okay. Any other comments for this evening? Otherwise, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. That's what we just had, yes.
Mount Valley Road. The first I heard about this was last week. Now, I know this has been going on for 2 or 3 years, this economic development situation. Richland County guy leave us? Okay. When are we going to have another meeting to talk about this where the people on our committee get to talk about these details? We need, what's the noise pollution? What's the smell going to be like? I mean, you talk batteries. You ever had a sulfuric? They don't make batteries anymore. But there's probably a smell potential here. And I'd like a list of what chemicals. One lady mentioned their lithium ion. What the heck is going on there? Is this another East Palatine? I'd live probably 2 miles from this site, and here they're coming in with a rail yard. Never heard about this. And Mr. Williamson, you told me today when talking to you about another matter, you said, well, what we're going to talk about today is rezoning a piece of this for light industrial. They want to do a rail yard. This wasn't known. Sounds like it just started in December. It's what I think I heard earlier. This kind of came at us like a Norfolk Southern rail train starting in December. Is that true, or has this been going on for a year and I haven't paid attention? Phooey on me. How long has this been going on, this kind of site here with a rail yard potential? They can move the rail yard up to I-77. You know, they keep saying, well, we're modifying the plans, we're doing this, we're going to change that. Well, change the darn rail yard where it's away from these people's houses. Okay?
Thank
That's all I have to say, and I'll follow up if we can find out when this next meeting is. I'd appreciate it. Thank you for that extra time.
All right. And if we're all done, I'm calling for a motion to adjourn these proceedings. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your input.